If you've been paying attention to the legal market over the last few years, you've probably noticed something. Some practice areas are thriving. Firms are hiring aggressively. Compensation is going up. Lateral movement is active. Attorneys with the right expertise are getting multiple offers and real leverage. And other practice areas, even ones that were strong 5 or 10 years ago, are quiet. Hiring has slowed. Compensation is flat. Lateral opportunities are limited. Attorneys in those practice areas are finding the market less responsive than they expected. The difference between those two experiences often has very little to do with the quality of the attorney. It has to do with which practice area they're in. I'm Andrew Wilcox, legal recruiter since 2003. Today, I want to talk about which practice areas are growing right now. What's driving that growth, and what it means for attorneys thinking about lateral moves. So, the practice areas that are hot right now and why. And of course, these things will change as the podcast gets listened to from time to time. But private equity and M&A has been hot for a while, and it remains one. Private equity activity, particularly in the middle market, continues to generate significant transactional work. Firms with strong PE practices are hiring partners who could bring relationships with sponsors or who can handle carve-outs and add-on acquisitions. If you're a transactional attorney with a PE-focused book, you're in a seller's market. Fund formation, which is related to PE, but distinct. A fund formation work is private equity funds, it's venture funds, and other alternative investment vehicles where they're exceptionally strong. The market for attorneys who can handle GP-side fund work is deep, and compensation for strong fund formation partners is at the top of the market. Data privacy and security, regulatory developments, particularly around state-level privacy laws, and the increasing sophistication of enforcement have created sustained demand for attorneys with genuine expertise in data privacy, cybersecurity, incident response, and privacy compliance. I could tell you this is not a fad practice area. It's structural and it's going to remain strong. White-collar defense and investigations. Government enforcement activity is cyclical, but right now it's a growth area. Corporate internal investigations, DOJ and SEC enforcement defense, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act work. All of it's generating demand for experienced white-collar attorneys. Firms are actively recruiting, and laterals with strong white-collar practices are highly sought after. ESG and climate, environmental, social, and governance work, particularly on the environmental and climate side, has become a real practice area with client demand. Attorneys who can handle climate risk disclosure, ESG compliance, sustainable finance transactions, and regulatory counseling related to carbon markets and emissions are seeing strong interest from firms building out those capabilities, depending on who the administration is, regardless of who the administration is. Healthcare regulatory has been strong, it seems like, forever. But it's one of the most heavily regulated sectors of the economy, and the legal work that flows from it, the reimbursement disputes, Stark and anti-kickback counseling, regulatory compliance, licensing credentials, they're consistently strong. Healthcare regulatory attorneys with sophisticated practices are in demand. Patent litigation, particularly in tech and life sciences. IP litigation, especially in the high-stakes patent disputes involving complex technology or pharmaceutical products, continues to generate significant demand. Firms with strong IP litigation practices are recruiting partners with the technical credentials and trial experience to handle bet-the-company patent cases. So, what's driving the growth in these areas, and what does that tell you? Growth in practice areas is driven by a few common factors, either regulatory change, market activity in the underlying industries, and structural shifts in how businesses operate. Data privacy grew because of regulatory change, GDPR, CCPA, and the proliferation of state privacy laws. ESG grew because of investor and stakeholder pressure on corporations to address climate risk and social impact. White-collar enforcement grows in contracts with government priorities and enforcement budgets. But the long-term trend has been toward more activity, not less. Understanding what's driving the growth in a practice area helps you assess whether the growth is sustainable or temporary. Regulatory-driven growth tends to be durable once regulations are in place. The compliance work persists. Market-driven growth can be more cyclical. If you're in a growing practice area, your leverage in the lateral market is higher. Firms need you more than you need them, and the dynamic affects everything from how aggressively they recruit to how much they're willing to pay. So, the practice areas I could tell you that are contracting or they're static and what to do if you're in one of them. Not every practice area is growing. Some are stable, but they're not really expanding. Others are genuinely contracting. Real estate transactions. Commercial real estate has been under pressure since the pandemic, driven by changes in office utilization, retail dynamics, and interest rate increases that have affected financing and valuations. Real estate transactional work is down significantly from where it was a decade ago, and hiring in this area has slowed. Traditional M&A. Now, while private equity M&A is strong, traditional public company M&A has been quieter. Large strategic deals have been less frequent, and antitrust scrutiny has increased, making transactions harder to close. Public company M&A is still a significant practice, but it's not a growth area in the way it was in previous cycles. Now, one I say tongue-in-cheek is bankruptcy, because they've been calling for the big tsunami and they've been calling for the big low in bankruptcy since I've been doing this since 2003. And usually it falls somewhere in the middle, which is sort of average. This is counter-cyclical because if it grows in downturns and contracts in good times, right now with relatively low default rates and manageable corporate debt levels, restructuring work is slower than it's been historically. That will change at some point, but for now, lateral movement and restructuring is limited. Tax. Now, tax is stable. It's an essential practice, but it's not a growth area in a sense that firms are not aggressively expanding their tax groups in most markets. Tax attorneys with strong books can still move successfully, but the market is more selective than it is for practice areas that are genuinely hot. If you're in a practice area that's contracting or static, your lateral options are more limited. That doesn't mean you can't move. It means that you need to be more strategic about timing, about targeting firms where your specific expertise fills a specific gap, and about making sure your book is genuinely portable. So, what does this mean for your lateral strategy if you have one? If you're in a hot practice area, you have leverage. I'd use it because that cycle sometimes closes. Be selective about opportunities. Make sure the platform you move to is genuinely strong in your area and will let you capitalize on the market demand. Don't just take the first offer. Wait for the right fit. Now, if you're in a slower practice area, your strategy needs to be different. Build your book as strong as you can. Focus on portability and be patient. The market for your practice may not be as active, but quality attorneys with real books still move successfully. You just need to be more deliberate about it. The emerging practices to watch in the next wave. Now, here's my crystal ball. Beyond the practices that are already hot, there are areas that are emerging and likely going to grow significantly over the next 5 years, and probably no surprises in here. AI and technology regulation. As governments begin to regulate artificial intelligence more seriously, addressing issues around algorithmic bias, data use, liability for AI decision-making, a new regulatory practice area is forming. Attorneys who can handle AI governance, compliance with emerging AI regulations, and counseling around the use of AI in business operations are going to be in demand. digital assets and blockchain. Crypto has gone through boom and bust cycles, but the underlying technology and the regulatory questions around digital assets are not going away. Attorneys with expertise in digital assets regulation, securities law as applied to tokens, and the evolving regulatory framework around blockchain applications are building practices that will be significant. Supply chain and trade. Geopolitical shifts. Boy, we've seen a lot of that in the news lately. Reshoring and supply chain resilience are creating new legal work around trade compliance, export controls, supply chain restructuring, and international commercial disputes. Attorneys who understand these issues are seeing growing demand. These aren't mature practice areas with deep lateral markets, but they're areas where early expertise will create significant opportunity. I have a daughter in law school, and I'm pushing her to where the puck is going, not where the puck has been. A final thought, practice areas matter, but it's not destiny. Your practice area affects your lateral opportunities significantly, but it doesn't determine them entirely. I've seen attorneys in slow practice areas make excellent moves because their books were strong, their client relationships were exceptional, and they targeted firms where they filled a specific need. And I've seen attorneys in hot practice areas struggle and move because their portability was weak, or their expectations were unrealistic, or they misread their market position. Practice area trends matter, but individual quality, strategic thinking, and disciplined execution matter more. I'm Andrew Wilcox. This has been the Lateral Lawyer Brief. If you'd like to have a confidential discussion about your career goals and perhaps charting a path moving forward, my email address is andrew@wilcox-legal.com. As always, grateful. Andrew Wilcox.